Thank you, Lisa, and hello, everybody. I am just going to take a moment to share my screen now. Oh. All right, just bear with me while we get into this here. Perfect. Hey, so I hope everyone can see the main slide, I hope. Let me know if you can't. It should say Proteus Innovation Competition, and I'm wearing the original Proteus Innovation t-shirt. As Lisa mentioned, we've been doing this since, I believe, 2015. And it has been going on now for, well, since then. But it started with one university, with Western, and now it's expanded to 6. So it's been amazing growth. And again, congratulations to all those who have made it this far. Just to remind everyone, there's 6 universities involved now. And I'm just going to move this over. That's better. So Western, McMaster, Windsor, Waterloo, Guelph, Laurier, technologies from all the universities are now involved in the competition. And like all competitions, this could not take place without our sponsors. So thank you very much to the sponsors. And the prize, as I'm sure everyone is aware, is $5,000 per technology. And so far, we have had the business plan workshop. You've all gone through the workshop. You've all submitted your business plans. You've all been selected to move on to the pitch workshop. And so now we're at the pitch workshop. Okay, so let's just take a moment to, before we jump into pitching and a pitch workshop, let's just remind everyone of what we've discussed. Because it plays an important role in thinking about your pitch and how you're going to do your pitch and how you're going to assemble it and talk about it. So in today's presentation, I want to accomplish a number of things. One is I want to put the pitch into context. Why do we do pitch workshops? There are many, many pitch workshops, but what is the role of the pitch in business and in investment, and how is it used? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Try to put it in context in the bigger picture, if you like. And I think understanding the context helps you with structuring your pitch for when you're assembling it to present to the judges in the competition. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, after we talk about the nature of the pitch and how it's used, I'm going to talk about structure of pitches and a couple of different pitches. Essentially, pitches have evolved from the original 10-slide, 20-minute format to now, many pitches are 5 minutes, like this one. Our local Angel group has 10-minute pitches. Some groups have 3-minute pitches or 90-second elevator pitches as their entry into the program. So understanding how you go from the business model you've written down to a 20-minute or a 10-minute or a 90-second pitch, how do you do that? How do you even think about that? So we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, now, just to recap. So we talked about using product market fit as the framework for your business model. So that is, we talked about the problem or need in the market that you're addressing, how the technology addresses that problem or need, who has it, Who are the customers? How many are there? And why do the customers find the new solution more valuable than their existing solution? So what is the value proposition for the customer? And so that's the framework by which the business plan and business model was organized. And it's also the framework by which your pitch is organized. We also discussed the various common commercialization pathways for new products and how in your market research, it was important to identify how commercialization works in your sector for your type of technology. And understanding that commercialization pathway and how you get from where you are to on the market is an important part of the business model and an important part of the pitch. So just as a reminder, this is what everyone has done. You did your 4-page business plan. You've described the market, the problem that's being addressed, the customers who have the problem, how many there are. You've talked about the technology and how the technology gets to market. So not surprisingly, these are the same core elements that are important in the pitch. It was designed this way for a reason. So before we get to diving in deeper into the pitch, if you ever have a doubt as to what the pitch is about or how to structure it, just step back and keep in mind the main goals. It's not just the goal of the competition, it's the goal of any commercialization process and the goal of communicating that commercialization process in the pitch. We want to understand, we want to create viable commercialization strategies. That's the goal. We want to understand how a technology allows for a new product or service that's needed in the market and valued by its customers. Let's move things around here. We want to identify a sustainable business model. That's the product market fit exercise you've gone through. We want to know the numbers, make sure we understand what the potential market size is, the revenue stream, and the potential financial implications of the business. And we want to understand the commercialization pathway and how you get your technology onto the market. So that's the goal. And it's good if you're ever struggling with what to include or not to include in your pitch, it's always good to go back to the original goals. Okay, so now the pitch. Pitches come in all shapes and sizes, from 2-hour deep dive with investors to all aspects of your business idea, to 10-second elevator pitch while you're grabbing a drink at the bar at a networking event. That could be a pitch. That could be a business opportunity. So there are 2 things that you want to understand when you're doing a pitch. And if you get nothing else out of this discussion today, this is what you want to take. This is your take-home message. What are the 2 things you want to understand about any pitch? Who is the audience? And what's the desired outcome? Those are the 2 things that you want to keep in mind when you're doing a pitch. Here's an example of a pitch. So if I were in a classroom, I'd ask, what is this? But I'll just answer the question. This is a sales pitch. This isn't what we're talking about today, but it's still a pitch. And the 2 elements of the pitch are who's the audience and what's the desired outcome. In this case, who's the audience? The audience is the customer, the person who will purchase the product. What's the desired outcome? It's a sale or a transaction. This is often a very brief relationship. Customer takes out their wallet, pulls out their cash, puts it down, you provide them with the product, and they go away happy. You may never see them again. That's a sales pitch. Sales, super critical. No business can survive without sales. But a sales pitch isn't what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're talking a little bit more about a pitch that looks like this. So in this case, who's the audience and what's the desired outcome? Of course, the audience are investors. They're not customers. And this is from either dragons or sharks. I can't remember which one, but they're potential investors in the business. And what's the desired outcome of pitching to investors? So the usual answer I get back is investment. I mean, ultimately, that is the outcome you want, but that's not the outcome of the pitch. The immediate outcome that you're going for in the pitch is for the investors to say, oh, that's a really interesting idea. I want to learn more about it. It's the tell me more response. So the goal for any pitch, when you're pitching to investors, is you want them to say, that's interesting. I want to learn more about it. Unlike a sales pitch, investors are, if you're asking for $1 million, investors are not going to pull out their wallet and give you $1 million. They're going to advance you to the next stage. And this is an important element to keep in mind when you're pitching, whether it's a 30-second elevator pitch, a 20-minute investor pitch, even a 2-hour pitch. What you're going after is a long-term relationship with a potential investor who's going to invest money in the business. And it's the pitch is the beginning of this long process to get to the end of that investment. So I just want to take a moment to talk about that process, because I think it's important to understand what role the pitch plays in the process. So investments usually start with maybe a 30-second elevator pitch, or formally with what we call a teaser, a one-page description of the technology and the opportunity that you provide to potential investors. And what response do you want from that? So the response you're going for at any time in this process is, tell me more. I'm interested. The investor uses this as a way to say, not interested, or yeah, this looks interesting. I want to go to the next step. So in the next step may be a pitch. This is the standard investor pitch, the Guy Kawasaki's 10-slide, 20-minute, 30-point font investor pitch. If you're successful at the investor pitch, the response that you're going for is, tell me more. And then you'll be invited in to do a deep dive into the program, into what the technology is and what your business is. This is often a technology-focused pitch. It may take 2 hours. You may have 50 slides in your deck. You may also provide them with a business plan. That's not the 4-page business plan. That's the 50 to 100-page business plan for them to review. And at the end of this, what do you get? Investment. No, that's not what you get. What you get is, I'm still interested. I want to learn more. Tell me more. And now you get to go into formal due diligence, which is a sometimes lengthy process and involves a deep dive into all aspects of the company, its contracts, the IP you have and its quality and your freedom to operate, the people, and a gap analysis of the talent that's in the company, potential valuations of the business model. And it can be quite extensive. It can take the investor a fair amount of time, and it can cost them quite a bit of money because they often use professionals during the due diligence. They'll use legal counsel to look at the contracts and the legal structure of the company. They'll use IP professionals to examine the patents. So really what this sets the scene, or what this allows you to understand, is that when investors are looking to invest in companies, they can't possibly do formal due diligence on all the companies they're looking at. So they need a way to quickly screen through the companies so that they can say, yes, I'm interested, tell me more, or no, I'm not. So the pitch is a screening tool. It's a screening tool for investors. It allows them to say, not interested. It could be there's a flaw in the argument, or it could be it's in a sector they're just not interested in, in which case you need to keep pitching. You need to keep going to pitches and pitching to investors for those investors that are interested in your sector. Okay, so that's important. In all cases, you're going after the tell me more response until the end, of course, at which point you do get the investment. Okay. So what does a standard investor pitch look like? If you're going to pitch to investors, what do they expect to see? So the traditional investor pitch deck is structured like this. This is Guy Kawasaki's 10-slide, 20-minute, 30-point font investor pitch deck. I will say, when I do mention a few names during this presentation, you are going to get copies of these slides. And at the end, I have a slide with links to documents or videos or other information that will help you in developing your pitch. And so one of them is to Guy Kawasaki's 10-20-30 rule and his slide deck from The Art of the Start. Okay. So the traditional investor pitch deck. This is the structure. Describe the problem that you're going after, the customer who has the problem. What does that market look like? What is your solution? And why does the customer find your solution valuable over what they are currently doing? So this is the traditional product market fit framework for the pitch or for your business model. Then they want to understand how you're going to execute on getting this to market. What is the development plan? How are you going to commercialize it? This is the pathway to commercialization. And then finally, what are you asking for? This is a pitch. You're asking usually for an investment. Okay. And of course, the response you want to get is the tell me more response. So I just want to go into a little bit of depth on this, which is, what does a traditional investor pitch deck look like? This would be a typical 10-slide pitch deck. As I go through this, keep in mind that as we talk about pitching to investors, this is to put it into context and to put pitching into the big picture of why we use it and what investors expect to hear. But we're going to get to the point where this needs to be condensed, because you're not doing 10 slides in 20 minutes. You're going to talk about shortening this and condensing it and getting down to the 5 minutes or even shorter. But for pitching to investors, 10 slides. Usually the first slide is typically, sometimes it's not even counted as a slide, but would have the company name, your name, and your contact information. Super important when pitching. Always have your contact information. If somebody is interested and you get that tell me more response, they need a way to contact you to say, hey, that was interesting. I want to learn more. Then, as we talked about, the next couple slides are about the market. What is the problem or need in the marketplace? Who has the problem or the need in the marketplace? Who's the customer? How many are there? What does that market size look like? Okay, so we talked about this last time. Then a couple slides on your solution. What is it? How does it solve the problem? And how is it superior to what the customers are doing now? So, in other words, why would the customer find it valuable to change what they're doing now to adopt the new technology? There's usually a slide on a financial model. What is the potential revenue and what assumptions are made about the market? In other words, how many customers do you have? How many do you think you can attract? What are your assumptions around those numbers? And what does that look like? How does that translate into potential revenue compared to the costs of your product? There'll be a couple slides on how you need to develop the technology to get it to market. What is the development plan? Technology ready to go, or does it involve a development plan to develop it fully, get to the final commercial version before you can enter onto the market? What does that plan look like? There'll be a slide on the team. Who are you? Who's on your team? What are your backgrounds? Also, there's often a discussion around what are the gaps in the team and what are the plans to fill those gaps. Nobody ever expects to have a full team or a fully rounded team, especially if you don't have investment yet. The question is usually, well, how are you going to attract the people that you need once we give you the investment? And finally, there'll be a slide often on what the program looks like. What are you going to do if you get the investment? What are you going to do with the money? How are you going to advance this program? What does that look like in terms of timelines, milestones, and budgets? How are you going to use the funds? And then that would be followed by, what are you asking for? And these are completely tied together. I want to show you an example of this from an investor pitch deck. This would be an example of a budget milestone timeline slide that's in an investor pitch deck for a product, a biotech product, for a drug that's being developed. So in this case, we've presented, 3-year timeline that's been broken down into individual years, and then what would be accomplished in each year, and how much that would cost for that year. So initially, there's manufacturing of your product and early safety and toxicology studies that will allow you to get into your first clinical trial. And so year 2 would be the first clinical trial, which consists of 2 clinical trials, phase 1 clinical trials, single dose and multi-dose. If that all works out, then in year 3, you'll start your phase 2 clinical trial. And if that works out, and you have the efficacy and the safety that's appropriate for this, you'll then partner with a pharma partner, and that will be the exit for the investor. So this would be a typical slide that you would see of some form like this in an investor pitch, where you say what the total cost is, what needs to occur to get this to the market or to the exit, what's it going to cost? And the next slide would be, I'm asking for $16 million as an investment to help this occur. And then there'll be a discussion around this. You'll go into due diligence, all of that. And if everything works out and you get your investment, your investors on board will say, this is amazing. We promised to give you $16 million, but we're just going to give you $2.5 million first. And we're going to see how you're going to do with that. And if you do well with that, then, well, we'll give you the next tranche of another $2.5 million, and we'll see how that goes. So you may have a budget for $16 million. You may ask for it. You may not get it all at once. So adjust your expectations. Okay. So this is how a pitch is used for an investment. What a traditional pitch structure looks like. The key budget milestone slide for investors. Okay. Those are all the technical details of what a pitch looks like. But a pitch is not just technical details. You want to communicate who you are and what you're about. Again, I've provided links in the slide deck to other documents and videos that you can go to learn more about pitching. So this is from Mars. They have a lot of great tools to help you with your pitching. So what a great pitch should communicate? Well, honesty. Investors are looking for honest people. Give a straight answer to an investor question. If you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer. Nobody expects you to know all the answers. They do want you to know the important answers, the important questions that you've done your homework on. Product market fit, how many customers, potential revenue, what does that look like? What does your homework tell you? That's what they expect. If you don't know, say you don't know. Credibility. Show that you've done your homework. You don't wing it. You don't wing a pitch. You prepare very deeply for a pitch. Because if you're successful, the next step is tell me more, and you need to be able to tell them more. So you need to have credibility. You've done your homework. You understand what your customer is looking for, what their needs are, and what perhaps key opinion leaders in that sector are saying. You're resourceful. You've shown that perhaps you've shown that, to this point how you can stretch a dollar. Maybe it doesn't apply in this particular case, but when people are seeking investment, they've often had an early seed round of investment, and investors are very keen to understand, well, what did you do with that? Passion. They want to see you are excited about the mission that you're undertaking. And leadership. And these often go together hand in hand, passion and leadership. Investors are human beings. They want to be excited by a passionate leader who is really passionate about the mission of the company and the mission of getting this new technology out there to really help the customers. And investors get excited by that, just like everyone else. Plus, if you're that kind of leader, it helps you attract really good people to the team. And you want to be able to attract good people to the team who share in your passion for why you are doing this, to help the customer with the new technology. And finally, humility. Nobody wants to know it all. And you need to be able to take criticism constructively. You have to remember, investors are there, not only to provide investment, but they're your partners in making sure this is a success. And they are looking out for themselves and often for you. So having a good relationship with your investors is really important. Be a glass half full, ready to soak up their knowledge. And poisonous relationships can often sink companies and sink investment, and nothing poisons a relationship like the lack of humility. So be humble. Now, during your pitch, not only do you want to convey all that information, you want to connect with investors. So I've said investors are people. You want to connect with them emotionally. You want to connect with them with a good story. You may talk about the pain that your customer is experiencing because of an inadequate process, procedure, technology, whatever it is you're bringing to the market to solve their pain. Share that. Make that emotional connection. Have a compelling story to connect with the audience. You have to remember that while investors are often interested in the numbers, they're people and they want that emotional connection. So doing a pitch is not just about the numbers, it's also a performance. So you're performing in front of an audience, telling a great story, connecting with the audience through a great story with an emotional hook, in addition to all the numbers that you have. You want to connect with your investor or with your audience rationally. You've done your homework. You know the business model makes sense. You have product market fit nailed down. You know the market sector, you know the value proposition, you know why your customer really wants this. There's a good, rational reason why this should go forward to help your customers. And you want to connect fiscally or financially. Make sure the revenue model supports you, that it makes sense. Okay. So I just want to summarize, because this has all been about pitching to investors. So before we go on to the next step about what you're going to do, which is pitch to a pitch competition or a shortened version of a pitch, let's just summarize. So a pitch is used as a screening tool by investors to really rapidly make go, no-go decisions before they advance an idea or a company through the process to a final investment. As you go through this process, the information that's provided gets more and more detailed and more complex. Right? So there's an increase in scope, an increase in details. It takes more time and it costs more money, especially for the investment group when they have to do due diligence. Now, let's flip this on its head and think about going in the other direction. Because that's what you're doing as a pitch. You're deciding what to leave out. What is it that you need to really focus on as you go from your data room to your standard investment pitch, your 10 slides? Now you got to go to maybe a 5-minute pitch with a smaller number of slides. So you can't speak 4 times faster. You need to leave information out and just decide what to focus on and what information is the most important to focus on. And that's true as you go down to your 30-second elevator pitch. And we're going to talk about getting down to a single sentence, describing the business opportunity in a single sentence. So as you do this, keep in mind what investors want. At each stage, investors want to understand how your business model provides a product or service needed in the market and valued by its customers. So it kind of tells you, as you focus down from your 20-minute pitch to your 30-second pitch, those are the things you want to focus on. They want to understand your business model, product market fit. Without product market fit, there is no business model. So that's important. They do want to understand what your revenue stream is or what it potentially could be. That in your 30-second pitch may not be the most important thing to talk about, but be ready to talk about if you get the tell me more. And they want to know that you understand the commercialization process. What is your pathway to market? What is the commercialization pathway? How are you going to get this done? Again, in your 30-second pitch, that may not be something that you would fit in, but if you get tell me more, you've got it ready. So the elevator pitch is constrained. It's only 30 to 90 seconds, often without any props, without any slides. Your goal hasn't changed. It's still tell me more. And your approach is very similar. You want to connect through an engaging story or conversation. You want to have a good hook that, gets the audience excited and emotionally connected and says, tell me more. You want to minimize jargon. You want simple, clear, compelling story. You want to talk about why you're doing this, not just how you're doing it. Of course, you want to have something to leave behind. Business card would be great. For anyone who's pitched at the University of Waterloo in their Velocity program, this is a couple of years old now, but it was a 3-minute pitch contest. So you had 3 minutes to get across the problem, the solution, what the competition is, the market, what traction do you have to date, who's your team, and if all that works out, what is the blue sky future look like? 3 minutes is not a lot of time to cover all of that. One sunny, crisp Saturday in September when I was 7 years old, I watched my father drop dead. That's a good hook. I mean, that gets you the tell me more response. You want to find out what happened. You want to know what's going to happen next. So think of pitching as telling a story, an engaging story, but it needs to relate, of course, to the technology. This is another example. This is from the CDL program in Toronto. That's the Creative Destruction Lab. Their first session is a 90-second pitch. And this gives you an example of the content they're looking for in that 90 seconds. You want to captivate with a great introduction, with the hook. You want to hook them in. Don't introduce yourself. You don't have to say who you are. Let the audience feel the pain of your customer. How is it that you grab their attention right away? You got 10 seconds. Next, state the problem that you're going after. You've done your homework. You know product market fit. What is the problem? What's the impact of the problem on your customer? How many customers do you have? Discuss your solution, 20 seconds. What do you have? What does it do? And how will it solve the problem? Here you can introduce yourself because you're bringing the solution to market. What evidence do you have that the market exists? You've done your market research, so you know that customers are already doing something to deal with this problem. It's just inadequate. And you have a solution to improve it. And then wrap it up with a great, memorable closing line, right? Create the desire, a sense of value, so that the audience, they don't want to miss this opportunity. You want them to say, tell me more. So that's the content of a 90-second pitch. So now I want to move down to a single sentence. And this is an exercise. And this is an exercise I strongly recommend you to try. Work with your teams, work with your advisors, get this down to a single statement, which is called the value statement. It doesn't have to be a single sentence. Sometimes it's awkward to do that, depending on the technology. But a single statement, maybe 2 sentences. Make it as focused and simple as possible and as clear as possible. And this really forces you to focus on what is most important about your technology and the market it serves and your customer. Okay. And it can be a frustrating exercise. It can be difficult. It can take time. but it's really worth it because once you have this, it forms the basis in which you talk about your technology, whether it's in 10 seconds or for 5 minutes or for 20 minutes or however long you have. It really allows you to focus on that which is most important. So there's 3 components to this. What is the product or service that you have? No, the components don't have to be in this order, but they should all be covered. So what's the product or service that you have? Who is the customer or user of the technology? And what value does it provide to the customer? So I'm going to give an example. Let's just pretend it's 30 years ago and coronary stents were just brand new, first invented, because they first came up with an alloy, a new alloy, a nickel titanium alloy, by which to make these mesh-like steel structures. Now, if you made it a mesh like this out of stainless steel, you could make the mesh, you could just never get it into the coronary artery. There's no way it would bend or be flexible enough for you to take this catheter, insert it into the arteries, go up to the heart, make the turn into the coronary arteries, and place it where you need to place it. So, brand new technology, a nitinol alloy, nickel titanium alloy. It has amazing properties, physical properties that gives metal wires super elasticity and shape memory. When formed into a coronary stent, the added flexibility allows you to move this into the coronary artery. It allows you to place it properly. And shape memory means when you inflate the balloon and expand the stent, it stays expanded when you remove the balloon. It can start off in a contracted state, then has enough flexibility to open up, but shape memory allows it to stay there. Okay. So this is great, but this is all about what this is and what it does. This isn't about why do you care. Simon Sinek has a great talk about starting with why. So if we understand why, you understand its value. So let's try to start with why and try to come up with a value statement about this technology. So what's the product or service? Who's the customer or user? What value does it provide to the customer? So pretend I'm a cardiologist. I would say, I'm an interventional cardiologist. I only have one treatment for my patients with clogged arteries. And right now it's highly invasive. It's open heart cardio bypass surgery. They're in the hospital for a week, but it takes months to recover from it. Now, with this new nitinol stent, it allows the interventional cardiologist to provide their cardiac patients with a life-saving treatment alternative to open heart bypass surgery. It's minimally invasive and an outpatient procedure. So that is an example of a simple value statement. But note what I did not say. I didn't use any jargon. I didn't talk about shape memory or super elasticity. I didn't talk about how it did what it does. This isn't about how. This is about why. Because it's life-saving, it's minimally invasive, and you can do it as an outpatient instead of being in the hospital for a week and taking 3 months to recover, you can have the stent placed and the patients can walk out. So it really conveys a sense of value, a sense of why you are interested. So simplicity and clarity are important for the message to be understood and to be remembered. You have a great technology. You don't need to describe how it does what it does in great technical detail. What people want to understand is, why do I care? Why is this important? Why do customers care? And in this example, it's pretty simple, right? It's a simple but yet very valuable alternative to the existing state of the art at that time of open heart bypass surgery. Okay. I'm going to give an example now how not to do it. I do need to just switch the sharing around for a moment, so just bear with me. And so this is an example out of Mars, and some of you may have seen it before. Okay. So I'm going to try this. And I hope this works.
Hey, I've got a great idea for a business.
That's exciting. Tell me about it.
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
Huh. That's a little confusing. Can you dumb it down for me?
Sure. What I do is I take a proprietary isomer that I developed with a picric acid wash that hollows out the carbon bonds and replaces them with a nanotube wrapping.
Okay, so I guess it's pretty technical.
Oh yeah. I've been working on this isomer for 9 years.
So what's the business idea?
To sell it,
To who?
everybody will want one,
What for?
so they can wrap their volatile organic compounds in carbon nanotubes.
I think you might need a target customer. I don't think I need to wrap my compounds in your nanotube.
Well, maybe not you.
So, for people who buy it, what's the value you are providing them?
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
You've said that already. This is getting annoying. Why should anyone care about your isomer?
I spent 9 years on this.
I know that. Okay, pretend I'm an investor. How can I make money off your product?
By selling it.
You're a smart guy, but try not to think like a scientist. Think like a business person.
Okay. Value chain. Term sheet.
I have to go now and answer that.
That's not your phone.
I know.
Okay. I hope that worked for everyone. I hope everyone could see that. I'm just going to return to the slide deck. Okay. So if we were in class, I would ask you, what was that about? It was about something to do with carbon nanotubes, right? It was an example of how not to describe your technology. It's taken from a real life situation in which somebody developed carbon nanotubes, spent 9 years on them, and tried to explain how they're useful. But you can see they talked mostly about what they did and how they did it. They didn't talk about why anyone would care or what the value was to the customer or what problem it solved for the customer. So the 4 items, problem, solution, customer, value prop, it was really difficult to get anything out of it other than the problem, organic volatile compounds. The solution, carbon nanotubes. Other than that, it wasn't clear. We don't know who the customer was. We don't know why they would find it valuable. It was very technical. So what we want to do is say, well, could we come up with a simple value statement that would just get rid of the jargon and describe what this is? So what is a product or service? Who is the customer or user? And what value does it provide to the customer? So an example of translating that carbon nanotube information is I have a simple, low-cost, environmentally safe additive that allows paint manufacturers to eliminate odors and irritation from their interior latex paints to easily create low volatile organic carbon paints. Notice we're not saying how it works. We're not talking about the technology in terms of the complexities of what it does. We're describing what it is. It's an additive. Its value, simple, low cost, environmentally safe. Who cares about that? The customer, paint manufacturers. So the goal of the value statement is to use clear, simple communication for the message to be understood and remembered so that everyone understands what the value is, who the customer is, and why the customer cares. And if you can do that in one sentence, and you can do that in a few seconds, then you can build upon that to now come up with your 5-minute pitch. So this is very powerful. There's power in clarity. This is maybe a bad example. Does anyone remember the 2016 election in the US? The two candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, both had pitches. They both pitched to their audience what their message was. One was clear and memorable. It may not have been true, but still it connected with his audience. What was the campaign? Make America Great Again. It's a slogan. It's simple, it's clear, attracts his audience. Women's rights, raising middle class income, campaign finance reform. Those were the 3 elements that she campaigned on. Does anyone remember that at all? So you can see that, you know, it could be used for good or bad, but having a really clear communication, having a simple pitch for your technology so that your audience understands the value and gets excited about the possibility. Super powerful and super memorable. And they will say, tell me more. I want to learn more. Okay. So your live pitch finale, April 8th, 2021. Your time limit is 5 minutes. You are allowed to use PowerPoint, but I would caution that you only have 5 minutes. So really keep it to a minimum of props, but go ahead and use props. And at least one person has to present. More than one person can present, but really, if you're going to do that, practice the changeovers. Make sure that that can run smoothly so you don't lose time in transitioning from one to the next. Have a great hook, an engaging opening that grabs the listener's attention. Who's the target customer? Why do they need? What do they need and why? What is the problem? What problem are they having? Why is the current solution inadequate? And how are you going to solve that? What is your product or service and why is it valued by your customer? What is its competitive advantage or superiority to the current solution to the problem? How will you make money? It's a performance. Have fun. Be engaging, be exciting, and practice, practice, and practice some more. So we've talked about product market fit as the framework by which the business model was done and by which pitches are done. Pathway to commercialization is part of that framework for your business model and for your pitch. So the scoring on this pitch and essentially all pitches will be, do we understand what the problem in the market that's being addressed? Do we understand who the customer user is? Or more importantly, do you understand it and have you conveyed it? Do we understand what the value proposition is? What is the technology and how does it allow for a product or service needed in the market? How does the technology get to market? And did I like the performance? Did you tell an engaging story? Did you connect with the audience? Did you connect emotionally, rationally, and fiscally? So 5 minutes, at least one team member. The final bit of advice is practice, practice, practice. Practice in front of all sorts of different audiences. Practice with your teams and with your institution. And I'm sure all the business development managers, whoever's involved in that technology, would be happy to help you. And reach out to them. And I understand that they're going to reach out to you, but be prepared for that practice and make sure you go through it many times. I said, these are resources to help perfect your pitch. The slide deck will be sent out. Go through all these resources. A lot of great information there. I've tried to condense most of it here and talk about the purpose of the pitch in industry, and then how do you condense that down and get to your 5-minute pitch and what is important and what are people looking for. So that's it. I will unshare my screen and answer any questions, and everyone else is on the Zoom can jump in and answer questions. I don't know if anyone has any questions. You can have to unmute yourself if you do. or
Hello?
hello.
Hi, I had a question, not in regards to the presentation, but in regards to like, so this competition in the future, if that's all right with you?
Sure.
Awesome, yeah. So I unfortunately didn't make it to the third round, and I know why, but you know, it makes total sense. I enjoyed the process so far. I'm just wondering basically if there's any sort of, I mean, you don't have to tell me what exactly, but like, are we to expect like another say technology from each university in the future, or is it just like who knows if you'll have something? Like I'm just wondering pretty much what's in the pipeline, and if you can give some information on that, that would be great. Thank
So
you.
the Proteus competition has been going since 2015, and we intend to keep it going. So it occurs once a year, and yeah, I fully expect next year it'll be engaging, and it'll be going, and hopefully it'll be live and in person. I hope so.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
Now, that being said, I think Zoom is super powerful. And with all the universities that are now connected into the competition, it'll be super convenient to connect through Zoom. You know, people don't need to travel that way. But the competition itself may be live.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, because there's a lot of opportunities that Zoom provides. You know, it's always good to sort of have the major milestones of a competition or anything like this in person. But I do feel like Zoom does offer some benefits for you know, things like this. Like I don't think 30 people would have showed up for this. And like, it would have been really hard, right? So I'm glad you recognize that. That was good to hear.
It's great, but it's I have to say it is more difficult to present as a presenter. It's easier to present to a live audience in a classroom.
Fair enough. Cool. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I would also only just add that generally technologies don't get chosen until over the summer. So we can't provide any insights as to what those may be next round.
Okay. And the best way to find out would just be on the Proteus website. Like whenever something comes available, you guys will just pretty much put it up there.
Yeah, and so information about the next launch date will be up there when it's determined when that's going to be.
All right, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Hi, I have a question. Thanks, by the way, Colin, for that presentation. That was very useful, I think, and I think it'll be very helpful moving forward. I just saw on the website that this the stage 3 pitch, or at least it says on the website. I don't know if it's going to be any different now that it's going to be virtual, but it does say that this pitch will be delivered in front of a live audience, including the panel of judges. And so I was just wondering, like, is this something that's open to public? Is there any way to have people join in and take part in attendance or whatnot? And yeah, I was just hoping you can answer that. And I do have a second question afterward, but I'll let you answer first.
Lisa, Jordan, do you want to address that?
Yeah, so I can answer that. So this year it is going to be slightly different. So first of all, there will be no live event because, as you know, it's really hard to predict what the local health units will allow at any given time. And so it is going to be virtual. Also, with the additional institutions this year, we have combined it so that there are going to be two sort of head-to-head pitch sessions. Okay, and so I think the team should be notified when they are doing their head-to-head. Those are not going to be open to the public. They're just going to be for those groups. And then the actual finale is going to be the next day, which is open to the public. And those are going to be open, that will be open to the public to join.
Interesting. Could you explain that, the two-part thing again? So there's first going to be a head-to-head between two teams, I'm assuming of the same technology. Is that what's happening?
Correct. Yes. So on April 7th, there will be two different sessions. One is from 3:30 to 4:30. The other one is from 5 to 6. there will be, the teams will be divided into that, and then the two top ranked teams for each technology will go head to head, and the judges will be present there to hear the pitches. And then the winning team from those two will be notified, and they will have the opportunity to give their pitch at the finale the next day.
Okay, got it. I see. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have just one second question that's a little bit different. So with our pitch, is it just going to be that 5-minute give the pitch? Is there also going to be like, do we have to field questions or anything of the sort?
You'll have to answer questions from the judges, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah. Is there somewhere we need to submit our pitch deck if we have one, like to you guys for the judges to review, or say we have like appendices in our pitch with some further calculations if they have questions? Like, is there somewhere we can send it to them so that they can review it after the pitch, or is it just whatever you put on the table in that 5 minutes is what they get?
Yeah, so we don't share the pitches with the judges in advance. You can have some additional appendices in your slides if you think the judges may ask you some questions relevant to those, and then you can pull them up during it, but they're not shared before with the judges or after. Once the pitches are finished, the judges will then work together and coming up with their scores, and then it will be announced at that time, so it's not at a later date. In terms of getting the slides in advance, you will be receiving communication about how that's going to work. But yes, generally we will be looking to either have you share your screen at the event so that you can do the slides, but potentially also getting them from you just as a backup as needed.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Everybody's good? Okay, well, I think that is it. Thank you, everybody. It was very nice to see everyone.